Hi there, I'm Kevin O'Connor, and welcome back to Ask This Old House.
Warning,
You've got
warning, danger, Kevin O'Connor, danger.
What is going on here? Richard?
A little something I threw together.
You know, I never know what you're up to, but what's the story behind this?
Well, actually, this is the newest thing in electric water heating. It's an electric heat pump water heater, and you're going to help me install it today down in Virginia.
So we're going on the road?
We are.
All right, just I want to point out one thing. You're not getting through security with your little arm that's there. Well, we're also going to go on the road with Tommy as he helps a homeowner install siding and actually get it up tight to an irregular chimney. It's going to be cementatious, and he's going to show us how to scribe it to that chimney. There you go, sir. Hey, Roger, how are you?
Good. You ever been bothered by pests?
Oh, have I?
Come on. How about mosquitoes?
Them too, sometimes.
Today we're going to talk about the technology behind a mosquito trap,
Okay.
how to maintain it, and how to place it in your yard.
But that sounds like a really good one. Hey, any chance I could stay here and do this with you and not go to Virginia?
Let's fire it up and see if it works on him.
I'm in a mountain community. We're near Skyline Drive, Northern Virginia. Beautiful scenery, and the Shenandoah River is just a stone's throw away. When you're down in the valley area, you have equestrian areas and farmland, but I'm halfway up a mountain. We heat our house with electricity and our water with electricity. This is the original water heater, so I definitely need something more efficient. And this one is just not cut it anymore. It's been in here 17 years. I'm ready.
All right, John, so show us the patient.
Right in here, Kevin. Here's the really old water heater.
Well, you did pretty well, John, getting 17 years out of any glass-lined water heater. Now, an electric water heater is a popular choice in America for its convenience. It doesn't have any venting. It doesn't need any fuel storage. All you got to do is run a wire like this. This is 220 volts to this glass-lined steel tank. Now, to heat the water, there are two elements, one at the top, one at the bottom. The elements look like this when they're new. It's an immersion-style element, sits right inside the water, and it has a relatively high amount of power, 4,500 watts. Now, that's what it looks like when it's new. What happens over time is that it can get caked with calcium and hardness in the water. When that happens, it can be less efficient. Less heat leaves the element and gets to the water. If it gets too caked up, it can look like this and it can break right off.
Yeah.
Richard, I've replaced those twice in 7 years.
Okay.
So you are definitely in the market for a new water heater.
An efficient one would be good.
All right, well, we are going to show you a new and efficient way to make hot water using electricity.
All right, boys, here is our new electric water heater. It's a glass-lined steel tank, and it has heating elements top and bottom. But these elements will only be used as a backup. The actual heating of the water principally will be done using this, a heat pump. Now, we know what a heat pump is. We might know it by different names. It's really just a basic air conditioner. And all an air conditioner does is transfer heat from one place to another. In this case, we're going to take the heat that's in the air around us. We're going to pump it across using these fans, this coil right here. Inside this coil, there is refrigerant that's very cold. The heat in the air gets absorbed into the refrigerant right here. Now it comes to this point, and the compressor comes on. When it compresses that refrigerant, it gets even hotter. Now, down through coils that are down inside the tank, the heat that's in those coils is transferred to the water, and you heat the water. The refrigerant returns over here, gets cold again, and the cycle repeats.
So we're actually just using the warm air to heat the water.
Absolutely.
You mean to tell me all this on top is more efficient than those two elements?
No question. This element right here is 4,500 watts. To run this compressor is about 700 watts. And it will be on longer than that element, but it's much more efficient. This unit will use less than half of that conventional electric water heater.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so let's get the old one out.
All right.
Let's go.
All right, guys, I think I'd like to change those shut-off valves while we're here. So, John, why don't you go find the water main and shut it off for me?
Sure.
Kevin, just pull that breaker so that we can kill the electrical. And I'm going to drain the water heater. All right, John, you open the faucets upstairs to break the vacuum?
I sure did.
Good. All right, Kevin is cleaning the cold water line with the emery cloth. All right, I'm going to cut this one. You sure you shut the water off?
I hope so.
We'll have to find out.
All right, good. Now just break the electrical and we can get it right out of here. Okay, boys, I'm an executive. You guys take it out of here.
All right, John, you and me.
Thanks.
Well, tip it to me. You grab the bottom. Ready? That's it. All right, John, if you give me a hand moving the new water heater into place.
All right.
A little bit there. Slide it in there. Try to get this roughly aligned to the pipes up top.
All right, we have two water connections to make. Here's our cold water feed into the tank. It's going to come down here into this T-fitting. This is actually called a vacuum breaker, and that'll allow air in to break any vacuum so we won't damage the tank. Now, cold water comes down through this pipe, and inside of it is a dip tube. And that dip tube sends water all the way down to the bottom of the tank to put the coldest water into the bottom of the tank. Once the water is heated, it's going to come out through this tapping right here, and then this hot water line will reconnect right here to the house. Now, the manufacturer doesn't want us to put any extra heat on these connections, so we'll make these sort of connections outside. All right, I need to tighten up these unions. There's two of them, on the hot and the cold. And these come in really handy should you ever need to service the water heater in the future. Break the connections instead of having to cut the pipe. All right, let's turn on our water. All right, now we need to think about the electrical. All right, we're using the same 220 line, 30 amp that we used before for the old water heater. There's two hot legs and a ground. Wire nuts on both these connections. Now, the way any heat pump works is warm air comes across a cooling coil like this, and it can bring with it humidity. So this ends up acting like a dehumidifier. And one of the byproducts of that is condensate or water that we have to deal with. So it comes out through this tube, and you normally would put it down into a floor drain or a sump pit, but you don't have one. What we're going to do with it is run that line right over here to a condensate pump. You can see the line coming right here. There's a reservoir with a float and a little pump. And it's going to pump out this discharge port into a tube like this that we will run up and over the doorway and right down here to the laundry drain. All right, Kevin, let's put the power back on.
Okay.
And there's also a filter that we should put in. This is an air filter. You got to make sure you keep clean, all right?
Okay.
All right, so we can see that it's powered up, and the default is that it's shooting for 120-degree water. Now, if you want it warmer, you hit the up button and then enter. And then this is also a default hybrid mode, and that's the one you want to keep it in. That means it's going to use the heat pump as much as possible and only bring on those conventional electric elements in periods of high demand. You're in business.
Yeah, and you're going to save some money with your new water heater.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate you coming to Virginia.
Our pleasure. You know, it's a pretty compelling story that you could reduce the cost to heat your water by half or more. And it's got me thinking, why doesn't everybody install a heat pump unit in their basement?
Well, it really depends on the fuel you have available. If you have natural gas or propane or number 2 fuel oil, there's some really efficient ways to heat hot water. But when you're talking about electricity, there is no more efficient way to make hot water than this heat pump. So those savings I talked about, we're comparing this to a standard electric water heater.
And how many people use electricity to make hot water?
You would be surprised. About 40% of the homes in America are electric.
Wow, all right. And that's all because we've got a smart heat pump up here. So I'm also thinking, why do we still have the old-fashioned electrical elements down here?
Well, that heat pump can take that heat that's in the air and gently deliver it back into this tank. And it may not reheat this tank in time for high demand. So those elements are there strictly as a backup. Now, the other thing about electricity is the rates for electricity change all through the day from the utility.
Yeah, so when they peaked during the day, it actually costs more to buy electricity than, say, like 4 in the morning.
That's right. Well, this thing actually has a data port right here that plugs right here.
Gotcha.
Now, this can communicate back to some utilities, and it can know when that peak rate is. And at that moment, it's smart enough to say, hey, I'm not going to leave those expensive elements on. I'm going to just use the heat pump.
So pretty smart. And what does this unit cost us?
Well, it's about double what an electric water heater would be, a regular tank type. But
Yeah.
there's some compelling stories to use it. One is utility rebates, tax rebates from the government, and also it's going to save between $200 and $300 a year in operating costs.
All right, good information. Thank
All
you,
right.
Richard.
All right, boys, this is something we all need. It is a black appliance that has a little control unit right here that spins around. Let me just stop this right here. Now, there's 5 ports. Now, it also has a plug-in right here, so you can plug it in. What is it?
Oh, finally.
Finally what?
Finally, they've invented this thing.
What?
This thing right here.
Yes, what does it do?
You know those coffee makers that make an individual cup of coffee?
Oh, yeah, I got one.
They're great, aren't they?
Yeah,
A little pot of coffee, the water comes through, and you got a cup.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one problem with them.
Yeah.
What do you do when you've got like 5 people over for dinner?
Yeah, you'd never run a pot of coffee.
Well, not. Please. This is finally a device that will make an individual cup of coffee, but it'll do it 5 times. Now, if I had some coffee cups.
I'm so glad I happen to have some mugs right here for us.
Look at that. Put your mugs underneath the cups, that
Cups,
is.
there you go.
All right, and then you put your pods of coffee right here.
Sure.
You turn the thing on, and whoa, wait
Look
for
at that
it.
chugging.
Wait for it.
Chug it, chug it, chug it. Thank you.
Oh, man.
Smells great, too.
you got.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I got.
You're not even close. What's the rage today? Video games.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, like you'd know.
Everybody likes to sit in front of the TV and play sports,
Tennis.
golf, even bowl.
Yeah.
All right. But what about the woodworker?
Nothing for them.
Nothing for them. You know, and who wants to make dust?
Right.
Not me.
Maybe
This is the
woodworkers do.
virtual sander. What? Yep. You turn this on, you get it by the TV. Next thing you know, a piece of oak shows up in front of the TV
Wow.
screen.
A sanding video game.
Yeah, now you got to
hero.
figure out which grid of paper you want to use. So you go to one of these and you pick it out. Next thing you know, they surprise you. They slip in a piece of mahogany. You got to switch grid
Wow.
under
Runs
pressure.
at 220 grid.
I'm going to take on the Sandmaster right now. Oh, no, it's eBay.
Yeah, the kids are going to go crazy for that one.
Yeah, but no sawdust.
Stop. I told you. It's something we all could use.
Cup of coffee?
This is actually a shoe shining kit.
No.
What?
All right?
Come on.
Now, with this right here, you start by cleaning your shoes. Oh, I just happen to have a shoe.
Look at the shoe.
All right? It's a dirty shoe, but look, we clean that right up.
Yeah.
Okay? Now we're done there, we get rid of that.
Wow, it's really for that?
Okay? Now, we need some polish. Okay? So a little brown right here. Little this. And when we're done, buff it up.
You know, my coffee tasted a little better this morning.
Look at that. Huh?
So a propane mosquito trap, Roger. I don't actually use one of these, but you do. Does it work for you?
They work for me, Kevin, but they have a bit of maintenance to them, which we'll talk about later. First, let's figure out how they work.
Okay.
They take propane gas and they burn it. And when it's burnt, it comes out as CO2. Now, that mimics our breath, which is an attractant to mosquitoes.
Gotcha.
Brings them up to the machine. Now, to get them really close, we use a chemical called octanol, and this smells like our skin. We just slide that up into the machine and put it in place. And once the mosquitoes come close here, there's a vacuum. The vacuum sucks the mosquitoes up and brings up right into this net.
Okay, so now we know how they work. What do we do to make sure that they keep working properly?
Well, these machines are on a 3-week cycle. This propane tank will last for 3 weeks.
Gotcha.
So then you're going to replace the tank. After you do that, you want to take this net and completely clean it out.
It's amazing to think that that net can fill up with mosquitoes.
And if it is filled with mosquitoes, it can clog the fan and cause the machine to fail.
Okay.
Now, also, you have to replace your attractant and slide another one up in the machine every 21 days. Now, before we hook up the propane line, we're going to clean out the fuel lines. And I do that by taking the cap off this valve stem, a little plastic cap.
So you could actually get some residual buildup in these lines from the propane.
Right, any dirt, we want to get it out of there so the machine will run well. Attach this brass coupling, screw it right on. We want it hand tight. Now we're going to take the CO2 cartridge, screw that into the brass coupling. Now we screw that all the way in, and then we back it off a half a turn, and that releases the CO2 and blows anything out of those fuel lines that's there. Now let's look at the propane tank itself. They all have a new type of valve on it. It prevents overfilling and the releasing of too much pressure.
And if there were too much pressure to be released inside the valve, there's a little pin that would be engaged.
Right. And the manufacturer gives us a tool to reset this pin. Simply goes in and turns the opposite way because it's a gas fitting. And that'll circle all the way in, push that pin in, and reset it in place. But now we also got to think about the regulator, too, in resetting that. We take the regulator and look at it. You'll see there's a little hole there and a little pin inside this tool. So we just screw that into the regulator, and that'll reset the pin in that. And now we're ready to hook up the propane tank.
All right, so we've got a working mosquito trap. It's well maintained. Any thoughts on where to put these things?
Placement is critical, Kevin. Put it where the mosquitoes are. They don't like sun, so put it in the shade. They love water, so if you have a stagnant water area, put it near there.
All right, good information. Thanks, Roger.
You're welcome.
Tommy, this is the fiber cement siding. We've loved working with it.
This your first time using it?
First time using it.
Yeah, these are actually made of Portland cement and cellulose. They come primed on one side, and they hold paint wonderfully, and they also are of a fraction of the cost of wood. So what's your problem?
Problem we have is over here on this wall. We've taken on this side and actually framed in the wall with the PVC trim on the bottom as well as on the side, which is going to make it easy to do the nice square edges.
Yep.
The problem we have is on this side where there's not a square edge to butt up against, and we have the irregularities of the stone.
Right, right.
So we need to figure out a way to...
Well, that's a tough cut. Now, you could take each individual piece of siding as you go up and scribe it to the stone. It's a lot of work, and it's time-consuming. The other problem that you could have is this siding will actually wick water or moisture from the chimney, and it could damage the siding. So what I want to do is take a piece of trim board, same type of trim that you use on the rest of the house, and we'll actually frame around the chimney with it. We'll create a nice tight joint here where it meets the chimney, and we'll give you a straight edge for your siding to die into, and it'll be watertight. To get started, let's get some trim board. All right, here's a piece of trim board. This is the PVC trim that you've got on the rest of the house. This is a piece of 5/4 by 5, and I've drawn a 1-inch line down the edge from this edge. Next thing I want to do is I want to hold it against the chimney, and I want to make it plumb. So let's have that level. Now, let's see how we do it. Okay, that's good right there. All right, now hold that trim board so it doesn't move. Now, this 1-inch line represents the thinnest part of the trim that I want to see after we scribe the board. Now, where the trim board touches this stone right here, I set my scribes to that width. So now, when I scribe along the chimney, the narrowest part of the board will be right here at this stone. Now, it's very important that when you're scribing that you hold your scribes level this way. If I don't, I would get an incorrect scribe. But here's our scribe line on our trim. Now I've set my saw on a 45-degree angle because I want to back cut the trim so the leading edge will touch the chimney. All right, let's see how we did. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, now that piece of mortar up here is actually holding the trim out, so I need to get a cold chisel and chisel that out. All right, that should do it. Oh yeah, fits good. Okay. Now our piece of trim board that runs along the bottom of the chimney here is all scribed and installed. Now before we installed it, we ran a nice thick bead of caulking down along the stone, and we pushed the trim into that on top of this felt right here.
And that keeps the water from getting back into the house, right?
Right between the joint of the siding and the trim. And then up here we had to do something different. Because of the angle of the chimney, there's a space between the stonework of the chimney and the sheathing. We had to fill that gap with flashing. So I used lead. I used lead because it's very malleable. I bent it at a 90-degree angle, and I tapped it down to follow the irregularity of the chimney. I ran a big, thick bead of sealant under that and pushed the lead into it. Now the sealant will stop any water from migrating under the lead and getting between the stone and the sheathing. I then put a piece of trim on top of the lead, and I nailed it in and caulked along the top. That will give you some place to end the siding. Now up here, along the chimney where it meets the house, we have a different situation, and let me show you how we're going to deal with that. Now I've installed our soft flashing right here, and that's stapled to the building. Now if you notice, there's a big gap here between the chimney and the sheathing. If we take a regular piece of trim, it'll slide right behind there, and we still have a gap, so we can't scribe the piece to the chimney. To solve that problem, we're going to take 2 pieces of trim and screw them together, making up a wide piece. What we do is we put it on the wall like that. Now, so I can insert this piece of trim behind the chimney, I first have to cut a straight line in the stone. To do that, I'm going to use my circular saw with a diamond blade. To get a straight edge down the chimney, I'm running my saw against the house, and that will also give me the gap that I need for the trim. The circular saw created a score. Now I have to knock off these pieces of waste with my cold chisel. All right, Stephen, I want to start at the top, putting the trim into the slot that we made and putting it up underneath the roof sheathing. So I'll put mine in. All right, now run a little bead of caulking right down there on top of that angled trim, just a little bead. All right, that's good. Okay, now you can push your trim in. Okay, that's good. Now is in where it goes?
Yep, it's right on the line.
All right, now let me tap it in up here, see if I can get to the line. And that looks pretty good there. All right, now I'm going to screw it in place. Well, there you have it. 3 different ways to install trim around a chimney. One behind, one on top, and one scribed to the chimney. And now you have a nice straight edge to end your clapboards on.
Thanks, Tommy. This looks great. I can't wait to get back on that scaffolding and start the clapboards.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks.
Well, that was one irregular chimney.
Well, scribing is a good way to make that joint watertight.
And you really want to keep the water from behind that chimney or the wood is going to rot.
That's right.
Water is the enemy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time, I'm Kevin O'Connor.
I'm Rich Trithewey.
I'm Roger Cook.
And I'm Tom Silver.
For Ask This Old House.
Really is the enemy. I mean, I work with water all day.
Rest my case.
Visit our website, pbs.org, for expert advice, step-by-step videos, and much more. next time on Ask This Old House.
Where you can help us out, okay? Right in there. Yeah.
Richard brushes up
Whose toothbrush is that, Steve?
and clearing clods. Is this gonna hurt?
I hope so. Without asking it, just think of the question.
The guys ask, what is it? That's next time